There were a good few highly anticipated anime releases towards the end of 2021. The Demon Slayer Entertainment District arc, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean, Blue Period, the list goes on. And among all that, Platinum End kind of just quietly slid onto the scene and just pushed through its 24 episode run.
Platinum End? Yeah, cool story, bro. But what about World's End Harem, though?
Like, seriously, I haven't even really heard that many people talking about Platinum End. I'm the only person I even know IRL who watched it. But of the people who did watch it and finish it, or at least the people who have read the manga, there is a raging debate that follows it everywhere it goes. And that is Platinum End actually good? And the answer is, it's complicated. Well, I'll do my best to explain. But before we jump in, please subscribe and do all the beautiful YouTube things. All right, let's go. So for the uninitiated, first off, thanks for listening to me talk about an anime you've never seen before. I appreciate that. And second, oh boy, do I have some stuff to tell you about. And finally, this anime heavily, like very heavily, focuses on themes of unaliving oneself. This anime goes deep into that rabbit hole and does not come up for air. Alright, so that is a trigger warning. If you're fine with that, here we go. So Platinum End is a series created by Takeshi Obata and Sugumi Oba. If those names sound familiar, they should. This is the duo behind Death Note, and also Bakuman for the Giga Chads among you. The series follows a teenager, when don't they, named Mirai Kakehashi. After his parents and brother die in an accident, when don't they, he's sent to live with his aunt and uncle. The only issue is that they are extremely abusive, and he has lived a horrible life ever since the death of his parents. Can't help but feel I've heard this somewhere before. Yeah, never mind. Because of this, every day of Mirai's life is hell, and eventually he loses all hope in life. And unfortunately, his crushing sadness is enough to drive him to... Okay, sidebar, if I say the S word in this video as much as I'm going to need to, this is definitely going to get flagged by the YouTube bots. So to avoid that, I'm just going to use the word unalive instead. I'm not trying to make light of the subject material, but I've had videos flagged for a lot less. Mirai is driven to the point of wanting to unalive himself, but at the moment he does, an angel shows up and stops him. This angel is named Nase, and she has a proposition for Mirai. Nase gives Mirai a pair of angel wings that let him move at supersonic speeds, and two special arrows. A red arrow that causes any person shot with it to love and fully devote themselves to the user, forcing them to bend to their will. For the most part, there are limitations. And the white arrow, well, one-shots any person hit with it. With his newly given wings and arrows, Nase tells Mirai that he can use them however he pleases to go find happiness in the world. Now here's the catch. 12 other people, conveniently all in Tokyo, have also gained basically the same abilities as Mirai, and they are all part of a process that will select the new god, who will rule over heaven and earth once the current one dies, which will happen in 999 days. Naturally, Mirai doesn't want any part of this and does not want to become god. But he gets roped into it when one of the other god candidates dressed in a superhero costume, calling himself Metropoliman, starts finding and murdering the other god candidates in a bid to take the throne for himself. Now, regardless of how you feel about the end product, I think you have to admit that the premise is pretty interesting. Giving godlike powers and a chance to become god to a person who doesn't want anything to do with them. Now, if you've read or watched Platinum End, it will likely remind you of two other series. The concept of a bunch of people running around a city playing mind games with each other in a bid to become the next god has indeed been done before in Mirai Nikki, aka Future Diary. However, I do believe that Platinum End separates itself from that enough to justify its existence. Honestly, the similarities between them are only surface level, so it's hard to call Platinum End a ripoff in any sense. What's the other series this reminds everyone of, you may ask? Well, the big D itself, Death Note, baby! A moody teenager gifted with godlike power and guided by a supernatural force, ending up in dangerous situations where he has to use his wits to win. Platinum End and Death Note are so similar, but there are a few key elements that are flipped around. For one, while Light Yagami is a handsome sociopath with a god complex and completely willing to kill anyone in his way, Mirai is actually the polar opposite. He's just a kid with like terrible self-esteem who wants nothing more than just a simple and happy life, and absolutely hates the idea of killing other people. The only thing that's similar about them is that they're both really smart and good at thinking ahead to outwit their enemies. Throw in the fact that their supernatural guides, Ryuk and Nase, are literally a devilish looking creature and an angel, and you can see the very intentional symmetry going on here. Okay, so I've beat around the bush long enough, and it's time to get down to the nitty gritty. The reason you clicked on this video. Is Platinum End good or bad? Answer the damn question. Okay. So like, check this out. Platinum End has several things going for it and against it. Let's start with the pros. I've already said the premise is cool. The next bit of praise I would give it is that it is very creative with how the battles play out and escalate from one level to another. For example, with... Wait, hang on. I can't talk about this without spoiling a lot of stuff. So, yeah, spoiler alert. To be honest, if anyone in the series is like Light Yagami, it would be Metropoliman. The conflict starts when Metropoliman makes his presence and abilities known to the world by stopping crimes and doing typical hero things. But not long after, he makes it known that the other god candidates are out there and asks them to bring themselves forward, at which point he like murders 3 of them in front of everyone, showing that he means business. Oh, and one of them is a child who screams for mercy, so yeah, this guy's pretty savage. Side note, the people watching all of this go down had an inappropriately chill reaction to this. But there are several scenes like this that serve as these tense, edge-of-your-seat moments that help hold you over until the end. Seriously, one of them is about to release a virus that just annihilates the human population. Like, it goes places. Another thing that I found pleasant about this anime was actually something that a lot of, if not most people, complained about in one way or another, which is Mirai himself, the main character. Of the complaints lobbied against this character, the biggest ones were that he's a sad sack and he sucks to watch on screen, and the fact that even in the most dire circumstances, he refused to break his code and kill enemies because his goal is to be happy, and he won't be happy if he knows he killed someone for any reason. But while it might be frustrating to think about, it's actually good that they did that with him. Think about it, before the start of the series, this kid was just an ordinary kid who wanted nothing more than to end his own life. He has crippling depression. That's not something you just get over, even with superpowers. Heck, even by the end of the series, you can argue that he still has it in some form.
Oh, but if that was me, I'd murk them all in a second.
You know, contrary to popular belief, it's not at all easy for someone who's never killed a human before to go ahead and just start cashing bodies like Rambo. Especially someone who, like I said, is severely depressed to the point of unaliving themselves. But despite that, Mirai has the determination to make convictions and stick to them until his view is changed organically. Going as far as to make these insane plans in the blink of an eye that can help him win without killing anyone. That's a pretty good quality in a main character. It's not that Mirai sucks, it's that his life sucks, and his characterization is consistent with that. And that's more important to me as a whole. But as I mentioned, he becomes open to killing someone if he absolutely has to, because he realizes that while protecting his happiness is important, protecting others is just as important. And 9 times out of 10, for anime that get into this debate, they will have the theme that it's wrong to kill another person regardless of the reason. So that's a pretty rare realization for an anime character to have, much less a main character who will then be rewarded for it. All in all, I didn't mind Mirai as a character. So as for what's wrong with this anime, where can I even begin? Well, let's stay on characters, shall we? One of the only characters I felt connected to was Mukaido, a terminally ill family man who wanted nothing more than to keep Metropoliman from becoming God so that his family can live in peace after he's gone. He was so passionate and so willing to put it all on the line to win. He was even the one who taught Mirai the joys of killing. I mean, brought it to his attention that one could kill for someone else's sake and still be in the right morally. He unfortunately doesn't make it to the end of the series, but the parts where he is there are some of the best the series has to offer. Then you get to characters like Saki Hanakago, Mirai's first ally, childhood friend, and crush. There's a part of the series where all the remaining god candidates are asked what they would do if they were chosen to ascend. They each give an answer, some less insane than others, of course. I, for the life of me, cannot remember what Saki's answer is. Her answer is so plain and unhelpful that Mirai's answer of, "I would do nothing," stood out to me more than hers. I mean, I think Saki would make a great politician because it is an art form to answer such a big and important question in a way that conveys no information whatsoever. Just there to go with the flow, rarely having input of her own. Yeah, she saves the day once or twice, but she isn't given nearly as much agency as the main character or even Mukaido.
Hey, wait a minute. You were praising Mirai for being a useless sad sack a minute ago. Why are you pecking on Saki, man?
I praised Mirai for the fact that even though he's a sad sack, he still manages to have such surprisingly impactful moments, and becoming a stronger person in a meaningful way. Saki doesn't really get any of that. But then again, rarely do the leading ladies in a shonen series. Yeah, I said it, fight me. Metropoliman, he's a character where the less you know about him, the more you'll like him. He has this sort of Light Yagami-esque mustache twirling villain energy to him. It's honestly fun to watch him just be a horrible person and love every second of it because he's smart and unpredictable. But when you learn his backstory, it's like,
what the hell is this?
To summarize a little bit, he loved his little sister so much that he wanted her to stay pure forever. So when she came home one day and announced that there was a boy at school that she liked, he freaking kills her by accident and then puts her body on ice like he's goddamn Mr. Freeze. Oh, I forgot to mention that his family is like rich as hell and he hates poor people with a passion. And so if he became God, he would make it his purpose to bring his sister back to life and also make it so that anyone he deemed less than him would just cease to exist. Oh, and also he would erase all the ugly women in the world because, of course, since he's a classist, why not make him a misogynist also? So first off,
Hey, yo!
if he hadn't have killed her, Metropoliman definitely would have ended up banging his sister at some point. Just gonna throw incestuous on the pile there. And as you can see, the series gives you nothing to latch onto with this character on a personal level. He's just such a cartoonishly awful person that you can't unironically feel for him. He's just a spoiled rich asshole with a sister complex. His only redeeming quality is that it's fun to watch him murder people. So having him as the main antagonist of the first half of the series was pretty underwhelming, and his death is only mildly satisfying. The series makes sure you don't feel bad for him in the slightest. Luckily, the second half of the series has much more nuanced antagonistic forces, but even that isn't enough to save this series from its own ending. So first off, if you're standing up for some reason, I'm gonna have to ask you to take a seat because you're gonna get dizzy when I tell you what happens at the end of this series. So one of the god candidates is this kid, Shuji Nakaumi, who super duper wants to unalive himself, like more than anything, to an upsetting level, to the point where his contribution to society since gaining powers is using his red arrows to mind control people who want to unalive themselves but are too scared to go through with it, to just take the plunge. Like Nike always says, just do it, I guess. Once the main characters find Shuji, and after much debating about his very troubling views on the meaning of unaliving oneself and philosophizing with him about it, they agree to let this kid become God. Yeah, there's like some stuff in between those two, like some plot beats happen, but his views are pretty much the same by the end. Oh, by the way, you know how I said there was a part where all the remaining candidates explain what they would do if they become God? You want to know Shuji's answer? It was to make a world where unaliving oneself was not only allowed but praised. Yep, this kid wanted to create a midsummer wonderland where you can just throw yourself off a bridge and people will just stand there and be like, good for them. Like, bro, what? And by the end of the series, like I said, his views don't visibly change, so the fact that everyone chooses him is pretty troubling. Also, that's another issue I have with the series, is that almost none of the characters seem to grasp the concept of what being God means. Having the power to do anything they want. They talk about having a world where you can die easily, or a world where people can overcome their struggles, blah 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 blah. Hey geniuses, how about a world where people don't have to unalive themselves? How about a world where you don't have to be sad or stressed out all the damn time? You ever think about that? Even for people who want to take a more hands-off approach to becoming God, like Mirai, you're telling me you wouldn't bother eliminating all the crap in the world that makes this place a hellhole, like racism, hatred, war, famine, disease, crime? How about make a world where life is actually fair and people can have a good life regardless of how they're born? I found myself screaming this at my screen more than once as these small-minded ass characters debate the logistics of becoming God. Yoneda is an award-winning scientist whose life work is largely thrown into question by the existence of angels and God candidates. He's definitely one of the more interesting characters in the series, and he makes it his mission to make sure that no one becomes God. Largely so that humanity can stand on its own 2 feet without people having to rely on God and religion to get through life. And looking at humanity's past with ruining people's lives just because they don't believe in the same sky ghost, there is a strong case to be made. But that very much does not take into account the fact that even if everyone in the world is shown that all the God candidates have died, ergo no God is chosen, ergo God no longer exists, a massive portion of them will either ignore it or try to take advantage of the situation and create new religions based around the events that occurred there, largely having the opposite effect on humanity than what he intended. Yoneda, and by extension this show, vastly underestimates people's ability to ignore evidence in favor of what they want to believe. Religion isn't based on facts or evidence, it's based on what a person was taught to believe during formative points in their life, usually childhood. Not to pick on Western religions, but there's ample evidence that what's in the Bible was largely written by monarchs and politicians, but that hasn't deterred a good number of people who want to believe in it. If a Christian saw a bunch of Japanese people with superpowers telling them to abandon their notion of God, a great many of them would simply say, "Ha, not today, Satan," and then double down on their beliefs. Platinum End's view on religion and people in general just feel so half-baked. Like, look at the scene where the Japanese public roots for a man who tried to murder teenagers in front of them just because he feels sad after losing.
天才だよ。天才。
Wow, what a hero. Don't give up, Yoneda. They love you. And then, to top all of that off, we find out that his plan wouldn't have worked anyway. Once Shuji becomes God and ascends to heaven, there are a few years of relative peace, while in actuality, everything just goes back to how it was before anyone knew of God candidates. Minus the actual surviving God candidates who still have their memories, and except Temari, but who cares? Temari freaking sucks. Even the wiki doesn't have anything to say about her. All of the surviving God candidates are living happy lives, and people are still dying from war and starvation around the world, but who cares about them? Anyway, Shuji realizes that the old God will merge with his consciousness and they'll become one, and he will lose the ability to actually change anything that he wants to. So his solution? To use a white arrow and unalive himself as God. Yup, full circle folks. Shuji, unable to bear the thought of letting God win, he unalives himself, causing heaven to become completely erased. But that's not all. Turns out that God was the one who created humans, and for some reason that means that if God dies, well, then so does everything else. Notice how I said everything, because not only does every person around the planet vanish into thin air, from youngest to oldest for some reason, but also all the plants and animals. That's right, double Thanos snap, everybody loses, the Earth is just an empty, floating rock in space now. Meaning that the result would have been the same if Yoneda got his way as well. Way to go, life equals suffering, so why exist? Ugh, so much edge, I'm bleeding over here. I'm sure there are a number of ways to interpret this ending, but from a storytelling perspective, it just comes off as unnecessary. It kind of just feels like we wasted our time by giving our energy to the moral and philosophical conflicts brought up in the show. I would have much rather seen a world in chaos under the reign of a new god than just nothing. It's just such a waste of an opportunity to do something interesting with this ending. I can tell that the writer wasn't entirely sure where to take the series, because they added in this small subplot about why Nase is special compared to other angels, revealing that she's some kind of special organism that not even God can fully know. Yeah, apparently there's stuff that God doesn't know. But where does that go? Absolutely nowhere. Once Shuji is dead, Nase dies just like everyone else. And in the end, it amounted to nothing more than a quick deus ex machina from Mirai to get him out of a pinch. An opportunity wasted harder than a freshman at their first college party. Platinum End is an interesting case study. It shows the effects that overambition and poorly utilized grandiose can have on an otherwise enjoyable piece of work. Is Platinum End good, god damn it? No, I can't call it a good series. There's just too many things that it does take away from its quality of storytelling and characters. If I had to put an adjective to it, I would have to say it's interesting at best. I can't help but feel like Death Note outshines this by leaps and bounds, but Platinum End still does have a lot to offer. From interesting thought experiments to some solid action set pieces, to some truly breathtaking art if you're a manga reader. Art's so beautiful, it can definitely make the mangled mess of story elements go down a lot easier. The animation quality of the show was never bad at any point, but it also doesn't even come close to doing justice to the manga art. All in all, despite Platinum End's absolutely insane ending, I have to give them credit for throwing a wrench in our expectations at the very end and going out with a bang. It was a stupid bang, but it was a bang. And I can respect that. Oh, and the opening song absolutely slaps. I had Sense by Bandmade playing on repeat these past few months. One of the best anime openings of 2021, period. Hey, if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please let me know by leaving a comment below, leaving a like, subscribing, all the beautiful YouTube things. It takes a lot to make these videos, but it's all worth it if I know there are folks out there who actually enjoy them. Feel free to recommend other series I should cover, and also hit me up on Instagram or Discord. I'm always down to chat about stuff. With that said, I'm out of here. Peace.